Welcome to Go Solo Live.
Don't you mean go solo live? Have you ever been asked, why on earth would you travel alone? Go Solo Live not only answers that question, but celebrates life as a midlife solo traveler. This is a safe place for women to come together to reminisce about their travels, encourage others to travel, and to dig into the real lessons learned from these journeys. Now join Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel as she and her guests share stories of the solo travelers of midlife women.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel, and today we'll hear from Paige Engle as she shares her travel tales through Paris and France. I can't wait for you to hear more about all she has to share in her Paris expertise. Please stay tuned at the end of our show today, and I'll be sharing some of the upcoming events that Transform Via Travel is excited to be a part of. Hi, Paige. How are you today?
Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, and I'm going to be candid and admit right up front, I have not made my way to Paris yet.
Yeah, I know. We're working on it. We'll get you there.
I agree completely. So I would love for you to start just sharing a little bit about your love of this wonderful city.
Well, great. I'd be happy to. So I have literally been in love with France since I was probably about 12 years old. So I started speaking French when I was 5 and continued on with a private tutor and then in middle school and high school and got a chance to go there in high school and then went there in college. And was completely smitten the first time I was in Paris. So I decided to study at the Sorbonne in Paris for a year. And also, once I graduated from college, I lived 3 years in Tours, which is where in the Chateau region where all the chateaus are, like Chenonceau, Chambord. Lived there for 3 years and just completely enamored with the language and the culture and everything about it. So I decided to start my own business, guiding tours and helping people plan their travel to France.
I think even more than that, when I talk to you, we've known each other for a while. And when I hear your passion, I think it's more than just a tour. Like, I think you help people fall in love with France.
That's my goal. My goal is to help people fall in love with France or rediscover a part of Paris that they maybe didn't see on their first trip there, that maybe was rushed or only 2 days and they were trying to see everything. I really try to help create a memorable experience for them so that they're really like, yep, I really dig Paris. I really love it. It has a lot to offer.
Well, I know that we're going to have some time at the end of the show to talk a little bit more about all these wonderful trips that you do and things like that. But one of the things that we're trying to do with Go Solo Live is to help midlife women really feel comfortable about traveling solo. Yeah. And I want to make every woman feel like solo travel is accessible to them if they so choose that path. So when you start talking about some of your solo travels, you've been doing it a little bit longer and alone. Yeah. Can you share a little bit about where you were when you started with that?
Sure. I was about 20 years old. I have had the pleasure of going to 20 different countries and 300 cities worldwide. And most of it, you're right, alone. And I just decided, you know what, I can do this. And at the time, when I was a young woman in my 20s, people like my parents and everybody else were just freaked out. Like, what do you mean you're going to China for 3 weeks by yourself? Right? What are you thinking? But I knew that I needed to do that just for my own soul and to make sure that, you know, I had enough confidence in myself. And once I started, I didn't stop. It didn't matter if my friends had vacation time or if they wanted to go to the destination that I wanted to go to. I just mustered my courage and went alone. And I feel like it was one of the best things I could have ever done for myself. And especially now, even, you know, in my mid 40s, I'm still traveling. Like I said, now I get to take people along and my family and that kind of stuff. But, you know, I will hop on an airplane in an instant. I think it just really helps you foster some confidence that you may have not thought you had anymore, or just really opens your eyes to other people and really helps you be grateful for the things that you have yourself.
I think you're tapping into a lot of what we talk about on this show.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I'm coming up with more and more, and you've been traveling a lot throughout, but what I'm seeing is these folks who had a great opportunity to travel when they were young. So,
yes.
All this, I'm young, I'm free, I'm adventurous.
Mm-hmm.
And then they hit this point where they're now married with a kid, and they might have like that inspiration to go alone again, but there's other things holding them back. Have you ever experienced some of that sensation?
No. I've never experienced it myself, but I have plenty of friends and colleagues and associates who feel that. I think they feel that because they aren't young and because they aren't necessarily like, I don't do the backpacker's lifestyle. You know what I mean? They may think that, traveling through Europe or going to Asia or even Latin America or even just, to see the Grand Canyon here in the United States, that you have to be young in order to do that. I don't prescribe to that philosophy at all. I think being older actually makes my travel experiences much more calmer because I know there are situations that I can handle much better now that I'm older. And I think that there's just some fear and hesitation of I've always done stuff with other people and never necessarily just doing things by yourself. And I think that people need to be really get comfortable with that. And when they are, I think they'll find that they have like incredible travel experiences.
Absolutely. And so one of the things, and I'll be curious as you talk about the groups that you lead. One of the things that I've experienced is people can go solo and still go in a group, and that's okay.
Yes, absolutely. What's nice about group travel now that's changed over the years is that it used to be you would go in a group and you'd have to be with these 30 people all day, every day for 15 days. That's no longer the case. There are tons of boutique travel companies like I have all over the world in all sorts of destinations where it's kind of like it's an independent travel, but you have activities that are organized. So there are times when you can be a part of the group, and then there are times when you can be on your own. And that's what's great about like my tours and some of my colleagues is that we make sure that we build in that alone time, right? So that you have some time to do the things that you want to do. Another thing, just super fast about traveling that I think some people, that the reason why they're hesitant is the safety factor.
Bring it on, Missy. That's exactly what I was going to ask about next.
Yep. And
you wrote the book on it.
I wrote the book on it. That's right. The Ultimate Guide to Safe Travel for Women. And it's just chock full of tips and ideas just to kind of put your mind at ease and to like really equip women travelers with ideas on how to be safe when they're traveling, because that is a huge issue for women. Like I really don't want to go to a place that I don't know. What if the hotel is sketchy? All of those types of questions come up for women travelers. And that's why I wrote that book.
Well, and I think actually there might be another edition coming out soon, because what I see a lot is as women are trying to seek value in their solo travel,
yes,
or maybe not always seeking value. Maybe they're trying to make choices about how are they spending their money, so they maybe aren't spending so much for accommodations.
Right.
That safety thing often is considered secondary until all of a sudden they've booked an Airbnb place in a part of town that had they seen it first, they would have never done that.
You're right. I mean, those questions, like for me, safety is always paramount. That is my number one concern. Price really doesn't matter to me. I will literally spend a little more money on accommodations to make sure that I am safe.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like the cheapest is not always the best, especially if you're in a destination that you don't know very well or you don't have a contact in that destination. So yeah, you're right. I think for me and all my tours and all my friends that I give advice to, especially if you're a woman traveling by yourself, or even if you're a woman, like a lot of times I'd be traveling with like Chuck from purchasing. Yep. You know what I mean? And you don't know Chuck and you don't know what he's about or whatever. He may be a nice guy at work, but you really have to put your safety first.
Absolutely. So yeah, I appreciate that. And we'll talk more about where folks can find that book, and certainly that you're available to speak to groups and things like that. There's a lot that we take for granted when it comes to this. And, I don't put safety as paramount until I'm in a situation where, oh my gosh, I should have thought about it more. Yeah. And all of us, and I would also say that when we were younger, we were dumber and we didn't think about some things that now, I don't run like I ran when I was 20.
Right. No, you're right. I always say to myself, thank goodness there weren't cell phones, Snapchat, Facebook Live when I was in my 20s. I don't know how.
No evidence.
No evidence of how I would do it. But you're right. I think that when you're a more mature traveler, you get a little bit more reflective, right? And you start weighing more and more factors because, to be frankly honest with you, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and I'm a caregiver, and people are, depending on me. People are depending on me to come back safely. So,
well, and not just that. I think it's that we didn't know what we didn't know. 23 years ago when I was in my 20s, there wasn't the internet, I believe.
Right.
Maybe there was. Maybe Al Gore had invented it, but I can't keep straight. So, there wasn't that type of information sharing that there is now. And I grew up in a small town, so I was definitely naive. I felt, in general, much safer than I probably should have, even close to home.
Right.
I'd go into whatever part of the city and, now, again, I think that's all about perspective and experience, but we know too much now. And that actually leads me to talk a little bit about, your business is based in France.
Yes.
And there's been some challenges there lately. So what does that do for your customers and for you? And what's perspective?
Yeah. So, yes, there have been lots of challenges in Europe the last 9 months. I'm sure everyone has seen it on the news, not only economic crisis, but terrorism and other, civil unrest all throughout the region. And it's been challenging. I think the most important thing to think about is the fact that, unfortunately, those incidents happen all over the place, but we just have to make sure that we do what we can to be vigilant and to make sure that we're in safe places, even though some places that we thought were safe aren't safe anymore. And I will say that the French government has been really, really good as far as bringing in extra security and bringing in the National Guard and, all the things that we would expect for a government to do to protect its citizens and tourists, that France has been able to do that. And actually, in general, all of Europe has done that. So it's a challenge to kind of dull those fears because they are legitimate. They are legitimate fears. And especially if you're traveling alone, that's why it's so important to let someone know what your itinerary is when you're traveling. If you're traveling to a country that has a U.S. embassy, make sure they know that you are there.
Absolutely.
In case something happens. And these are things that we wouldn't have done 10, 15 years ago, but are really necessary today.
Absolutely. And thank you. I know anybody who's thinking about overseas travel to Europe right now, these are concerns that they're going to have.
Yeah.
And again, legitimate, but to what degree do you let that stop you?
Well, I don't let it stop me. But, everyone has their own degree of risk that they take.
Yep.
I know and you have to weigh that out. But I know for myself, I've been traveling there for the last 25 years. And I feel completely safe, but everyone has to evaluate that for themselves. And I really tell people that if maybe Europe isn't on your list right now, maybe you don't feel comfortable about going to Europe. Maybe you go to New Orleans to get a little flavor of France or,
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Or something closer to home, but definitely don't feel that you can't travel or you can't do something because of that, but just keep traveling and having fun with it.
Absolutely. And, it's important that we don't let the fear get in our way. So I know that there's been times when I've been traveling and I get, a little bit of that anxiety, you get the stomach butterflies or things like that.
Right.
And so as you're doing that with the women in your groups, How do you help encourage them to, kind of just say, okay, I know that you might not be ready or comfortable, but what do you do to encourage them, incentivize them to like take the leap?
Okay, so one of the things I do, because this is how my brain works, is I make sure that they know that they have basically documentation and support, right? They know that someone's going to know what their itinerary is. They actually know what their itinerary is. In times like this, you just can't say, "Oh, I'll get a transfer when I get there," right? Or I'll pick up a taxi, when I get off the airplane. It just doesn't work like that. So having those plans in place, like a little bit of structure, especially when you first get there, is key. Because then people feel like, you know what? I know where I'm going. I can walk with confidence, right? I know what hotel I'm supposed to be staying at, and someone else knows where I'm going to be. Absolutely. It's not like I'm going on my own. And I think when people have that kind of security, per se, with knowing kind of like what their plan is, not that everything has to be set in stone, but initially having that plan really helps and literally eliminate about 75% of the fears.
I love it. That makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And I know we've gotten kind of talking into the safety mode, and there's a lot of different ways that we should, but you have this passion for Paris.
Yes.
And it's been around for a long time. If I had to ask you, I don't want it to be like your favorite place in Paris, because you could probably list 40 different places.
Okay.
I want to find out, like, in your heart, when you go to Paris, like, where do you take that deep breath and sigh and say, I'm home?
I do that in the Luxembourg Gardens, which is between the 5th and the 6th. So that's the Latin Quarter and Saint-Germain-des-Prés. It is a beautiful urban garden, and it is fabulous. That is technically like my spot. There's no other place like it in the world, and it's called the Luxembourg Gardens.
So why, aside from the where,
yeah,
tell me about, like, where were you at when that became like your spot?
I was studying at the Sorbonne, and I needed to find a place where I could just relax and chill and do my schoolwork. And inside that garden, on a day I was super, super homesick, right? Super homesick. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go and walk around the park and see what I can find, like a nice bench to sit at. And in that garden is one of the 4 replicas of the Statue of Liberty.
What?
It's actually one of the bronze models of the Statue of Liberty.
Awesome.
And that made me feel like, you know what? It's okay that I'm here. And this is a little piece to remind me of home and the other place that I consider to be my second home. So I'm putting a challenge for all you Go Solo travel people out there. If you're ever at the Luxembourg Garden, look for that Statue of Liberty replica. And you'll know the feeling that I was feeling at the time.
I can't imagine. Actually, what's great is I was recently in New York, and I saw off-Broadway play about the Statue of Liberty coming over. And so it was called Liberty, and it was enacted by a little girl who was playing the statue. It was very nice. And it had like her father sending her off from France. And just, it just makes you think, whoa, this was a huge deal. And so that there's that part of what we consider to be so important to our home and our history to be right there. That's awesome.
That's my spot.
That's awesome. So as you are talking about travel, I want you to connect it to not just that enjoyment and that fun. I want you to connect it to, like, how has your perspective or worldview changed as you've gone on your travels?
Oh my goodness. How has it not changed?
Right.
So, and it's changed in different ways. It's changed over the years, and it's changed based on the destinations that I've gone to. And had the chance to experience. I mean, with Europe, it just gave me a real good sense of history and culture and just heritage and, those types of issues, right? Those types of things that are like really important. And in Asia, when I've traveled to Thailand and China and Japan, it made me see how different the world can be, but how so much we are the same. right? Like
Absolutely.
people value their families and language and culture and the things that are important. And thirdly, it's made me really appreciate the things that I have been blessed with. I mean, there's nothing like seeing a whole town built underneath a freeway in Thailand and kids playing in the dirt, you know, eating garbage. And here you are going to your 4-star hotel.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, it's, you know, I think travel opens up so many emotions for a person and so many viewpoints that makes you really focus in on who you are and the change that you really can make in the world.
Absolutely. And that comes by being really self-aware and being engaged in your surroundings. We talk a lot about the difference between being a tourist and a traveler.
Yeah.
A tourist is one who can go and see things and check it off their list, and a traveler is one who is there to experience it. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that has been a huge part of what attracts me to the work that you do is that you're about the experience.
It's true. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't diminish the 2-day trip to Paris, mm-hmm. you know, where people check it off the list. I call it the checklist, bucket list people, right? They check off, oh, I've been to the Eiffel Tower. Oh, I've been to the Louvre. Just today, someone was like, oh yeah, I've been to the Louvre. And she's like, yeah, we spent an afternoon there. And then I'm thinking to myself, you really haven't been to the Louvre. Because actually it takes, if you want to see everything in the Louvre Museum, it would take you every day 12 hours for 3 months to see everything at the Louvre, right?
Whoa.
Exactly. So when people go in and they're overwhelmed by all the hustle and bustle and it's a maze really, you can turn every which way, you really aren't experiencing it. And I love to take people to experience French culture, like having dinner at a French person's house or learning how to make baguette in a boulangerie and, you know, all sorts of French breads and all that kind of stuff, or going to a cheese factory and finding out how they actually make the cheese. It's things like that that bind you to the culture. Or even if you're in Latin America, going to a concert or seeing how an instrument is made, right? Those are the types of experiences that are going to be really good memories for you when you travel. And I encourage people, like if you're going to Italy, take a cooking class, right?
Amen.
Find something that's unusual and that you love, that's a passion of yours, and do it. Do it in the culture. Don't worry about if you don't speak the language. It all works out in the end.
I would agree. And I think especially, you know, when you talk about that culture and you talk about the museums and the places are just a piece of it, right? And then you have, for example, the music. Mm-hmm. For example, the food. So I take a cooking class in every country I claim.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So I learned how to make paella in Spain. Yep. I learned how to make ajiaco in Colombia. You're like, yes. And then back at home, I'm taking classes as well because I love doing cooking classes. That doesn't make me a great cook. There's a difference. But yeah, I think that's a huge part of it is your perspective on what you love and enjoy at home is something that then you can go elsewhere and experience mm-hmm. it. And it actually creates even a deeper meaning for you because you've done it elsewhere.
Yep. Well, and it also connects you to that culture.
Yep. Absolutely.
It makes a deeper connection to that culture.
So you have talked about other countries mm-hmm. and I know, you know, we've actually talked about why don't you go do tours elsewhere? And I know your heart lies with Paris and with France.
Yeah.
But if you had to pick a number 2 of favorite places, mm-hmm. give me a where and why.
I would definitely pick probably. That's a good question, Jennifer.
I know, it's tricky. Take a minute. It's okay. We can stall.
No. I would pick, I pick Thailand.
Wow.
I would pick Thailand just because of, first of all, I love that it's warm.
Good.
Coming from Wisconsin. I love that it's warm. And I just actually love all the colors and the vibrancy and the hustle and bustle. I just love everything about it, actually.
That's awesome.
The energy.
So some people like the fashion in different areas as well.
Yeah.
Is that something that when your people are coming with you, that they get a chance to experience fashion?
Oh, sure. I actually have done 2 actual shopping and fashion tours where we do fashion shows and go to different, not like Paris Fashion Week. I don't have those contacts yet. For Paris Fashion
I love
Week.
it.
But we do some fashion shows and some boutiques and things like that in France, as well as some of the grand department stores, like the big department stores that you'll see, Galeries Lafayette and Printemps and that kind of stuff. So we do a little bit of that. And what's nice about my tours is that if there are shoppers or foodies or whatever your interest is, I usually customize a special experience based on that.
Fantastic. So it sounds like you are able to service many as you are in many tastes and varieties. Mm-hmm. What fills your heart when you take people to France? What fills you up?
What really jazzes me up, besides hearing all the airplane announcements in English and French, which I know we're getting close, what really fills me up is when we're coming off of the top of the Eiffel Tower. We've done our tour up there, and as we're coming down, the Eiffel Tower is twinkling, and you can see it in people's eyes, and that you can see them saying, "I am really here. I'm here right now and present." That is what just sets me over the edge and jazzes me up every single time. I never get tired of it.
I love it. Yeah. Well, so I have a couple more questions and then we're going to get into wrapping up. But, you're also a wife and a mom.
Yes.
And you have been able to share some of your travels with them.
Yes.
So I'd like to kind of just hear how does it feel to bounce back from being the group leader as well as the, the guide who's responsible for groups to go on the trips to then becoming the mom in the family? How does it feel to go back and forth and be able to share this with your family as well?
To be honest with you, it's seamless for me. And let me tell you why. Because I don't prescribe to the work-life balance philosophy at all. I prescribe to work-life integration. So every part of my business, every part of French language is, integrated into my home life. Like my little guy watches Scooby-Doo in French,
That's awesome.
So there really isn't that big of a separation. So my little guy knows what mom does for work, right? And what's nice is that he knows that when there's a group around mom, that mom is working, right?
Very good.
We've established those boundaries since he was about 3 years old and started coming on trips with me. He's 7 now. And let me tell you, he can pull his carry-on bag with the rest of them by himself. So I just, we've established those boundaries and it's integration for us. So it's not that hard for me to get back into the mode.
That's awesome. Good. Well, and what a blessing that you've been able to share this with your family as well.
It has totally been a blessing. Absolutely. Hands down.
So one of the things that we talked about early on was how when you started doing this when you were in your 20s, right?
Yes.
And I'm a small town girl from Wisconsin. And when I tell people I'm traveling solo, they look at me like I'm an alien.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I understand the safety fear, right? I understand that there's a lot of people who are afraid of you for your safety of traveling alone. But I also think that there's a social thing. Like, why? Why would you even choose to do that? Can you tell me a little bit about what your experiences have been with that?
Sure. You know what? There's always been that. Why would you want to go there by yourself? Or, and I just didn't listen to that. But on the flip side of when I was there, depending on the destination that you go to, they want to know where your husband is, right? They want to know, why are you traveling by yourself? So what I learned to do is I would just go to, Boston's or Macy's and pick up a big piece of costume jewelry, right? And put it on my wedding finger or whatever, my ring finger. And I would just pretend that I was a part of a couple. And if I was by myself, because I too am from Wisconsin, I would just say that my husband, who plays for the Green Bay Packers, is waiting in the cafe around the corner. So they would essentially...
Good cover.
Yeah, leave me alone.
Yes.
Right. And, it would just kind of null and void any of those questions. So you have it on both sides where they want to know when you're traveling from home, people are like, why would you even go by yourself? And then on the other side, people say, why are you traveling by yourself? And you kind of want to lie and say, nope, I'm traveling with somebody, just so that you don't appear to be a victim, or pray for them and just have that confidence.
Yeah, there's a vulnerability factor for sure. Actually, in one of the groups I'm involved in online, the question just came up again is, do you tell people when you're abroad that you're traveling alone?
Right.
And there's a variety of opinions on it. I'm a 6 foot tall, larger woman. There's not a lot of people who choose to mess with me, but that doesn't mean that I'm still all out there like, yeah, I'm alone. Woohoo. It's different.
There's value in finding collective minds, and then you can easily open yourself up to finding travel partners or, for day tours and trips and all that kind of stuff. And you can meet up with people. That's great. That's how you make friends. That's how you make friends for life from all over the world. But there is definite value in having confidence in saying, you know what? I'm waiting for someone, especially if you're getting unwanted advances.
Absolutely.
And here's my tip to people. Don't worry about being mean, right? If you feel like, oh, they're going to think I'm mean. If you don't want those advances, then you say, get away from me, and no. And you become very stern. It may be completely opposite to how you would react at home, but a lot of men abroad are very persistent. And so you have to make sure that you take care of yourself in those types of situations.
Well, and I think there's a difference between appearing to be polite and appearing to be vulnerable.
Right.
And many women that I've talked to become lighthearted and fancy-free when traveling.
Oh, yes.
Which sometimes means less aware.
Right.
And so
lower inhibitions.
Yep, lowered inhibitions. And so we absolutely want to make sure that, again, the ultimate guide to safe travel is going to help you get there. So that said, Paige, why don't you tell us, you've got a lot going on with your businesses and things like that. I'd love to make sure, and these will go in the show notes, so people can buy your book, connect with you and whatever, but tell them what you've got going on.
All right. I have, like we've mentioned, the Ultimate Guide to Safe Travel. It is available on Amazon. You can get it in ebook or in print on Amazon. Or if you want to go to your local bookstore, like a Barnes & Noble, they can order it for you. No problem. I also have a tour coming up next year in June 16th through the 23rd, 2017. And I'm so excited about it. It is actually going to be a Paris photography tour, like a photo tour. So we're going to have an expert photographer come with us so that we can get all of our awesome shots with the best lighting and all the techniques. So that's going to be super cool.
And actually, Paige, Tina, the person that you're partnering with for that, was a guest on our podcast earlier.
She was.
So they can hear Tina Erdman.
Yeah, Tina Erdman. She is amazing. She does these types of experiences and photo tours in Africa, as well as Norway and Bhutan. So she has tons of experience doing that. So people should go and listen to that. And, I'm just really trying to help as many people as I can with my tours, as well as I also do travel planning for people. So let's say you already have an itinerary and you just want me to take a look at it to see if you're hitting all the right spots or if things could be tweaked in a different way. Or I help people also plan out their itineraries. So all of that, you can find out all that information at my website, which is parisbypaige.com. And if you want to just travel with me in your mind, like a virtual trip, you can always follow me on Instagram at Paris by Paige.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
So that trip you have coming up in June is a great partnership. The other thing we talked about earlier was other boutique providers. And Taloria Grant, who does Italy, was a guest on our podcast at an earlier podcast as well.
Yeah, she's actually in Italy right now.
I know, for her birthday.
For her birthday. It's awesome. So that's what's, great about being in the travel industry and doing kind of more boutique type of trips. And, we have contacts all over the world. I do, at least. And I know that you have colleagues as well. And that's what's great, is that you can always find a resource to answer questions for people. So if people are hesitant about not traveling because they don't know enough, we can definitely help people with that and kind of answer some of their questions, which is what I was saying. If you have just a general plan or idea, it really helps you get over that hump so that you feel comfortable traveling solo.
Absolutely. And again, from the safety perspective, especially if you've already done your own personal itinerary for a solo trip to Paris and you would like expert review, not only about Paris, but about women traveling safely, this is definitely a person to connect with and get that expert advice.
You're so sweet. Thank you. Thank you.
I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Thanks again, Paige.
Thank you so much. And everybody, make sure you go solo.
Woohoo! Wasn't it great to hear some of the stories that Paige shared with us today? It's important to remember that we have to keep safety in the forefront of what we're doing, but that doesn't mean that that's the only thing we focus on. When we take care of it first, then we get to enjoy everything after that. We've now reached the end of today's episode. I hope that you've been enjoying our guests and that you can relate to their stories, but the interaction doesn't have to stop there. Please reach out to me at Jennifer@transformviatravel.com to share your thoughts and feedback. Reviews of Go Solo Live are welcome and encouraged. Just go to wherever you found this podcast and post a review. For more information about how to take your own journey of self-discovery, our upcoming community and Go Solo Live challenges, go to www.transformviatravel or www.facebook.com/transformviatravel. I look forward to connecting with you. Until next time, remember you're solo, not alone.